You sow a thought, you reap an emotion. You sow an emotion, you reap a decision. You sow a decision, you reap an action. And the action is where lust manifests. It's an action we do. It's not a thought we think. Well, it starts with thoughts and then leads to emotion, and emotion makes us decide, and decision eventually ends up in us acting. So, thoughts are information that we get from living in the world. Information. It could be our belief system. We have a set of thoughts that we operate based on. They could be bad, they could be good. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be bad. But let's say I tell you that you look really good today. That thought that I just said will make you feel better about yourself. It will produce an emotion, which is feeling. The same as if I told you something negative. It will produce an emotion. Not everything produces emotion, it's more the things that we take personally, but as a rule, it's the thoughts, information that we go through our mind is what produces feelings, emotions. Those feelings then make us do decisions. You probably think, no, I'm actually deciding because I'm making the decision logically. But psychology has proven that we make decisions make decisions emotionally and justify them with logic. Ooh. When I want to make it perfect, I always mess it up. But it's no, I'm not going to take another take. Yeah, so information leads to a feeling or emotion. Emotion leads to decision, and decision is deciding to do the action. So let me do this. Yeah, decision leads to an action. One of the feelings that are the most motivating is feeling of, okay, I'm a little bit messing it up, feeling of desire. It's something that we're drawn towards. Those desires, as an emotion, of course, leads to decision as well. And as we desire something, we decide to pursue it. We decide to take action. So everything starts with information. It leads to a feeling. Feeling could be a desire that leads to a decision to take action. Now, some of the feelings are feelings we want, and some of the feelings are feelings we don't want to have. Feelings we don't want to have. And when we don't want to have a feeling, it creates a desire to change the feeling and move us to a place where we experience the feeling that we do want. Just gonna make it bold. So our brain always wants to move us from feelings we don't want, emotions we don't want to experience, to emotions we do want to experience. So let's say you don't want to feel sad, you're gonna watch something funny. You feel bored, you wanna watch something, scroll on your phone to remove the boredom and move to a place where you feel excited, content, busy, and things like that. But here in the middle, I'm going to remove the arrow. There are actions that are good and actions that are bad. Should be like that. So when it comes to lust, there could be, I'm still learning this tool, there could be a feeling, for example, loneliness, and you decide to watch pornography because you want to remove the feeling of loneliness so you feel connection with someone, even though it's a person on the screen and it doesn't really provide that. Or you could go and see a friend and remove the feeling of loneliness and feel the connection. And that's how we operate. And after some time passes by, we are back to the state that we felt before. So there could be time, there could be triggers, there could be circumstances. A friend, a friend has a child, and he said that the child thought that circumstances are actually circus dances. Circus dances. So he said we shouldn't live by circus dances. But after time, we get to a place where we come back to the state of emotions that we don't want to experience. And then again, we have the choice to take a good positive action. No, it's not. Okay. Take a good positive action that's actually helpful, or to take the bad action, which is most of the time it's not helpful. But the goal always for our brain is to reach a state of emotion that we desire. And what's important to know is that our brain doesn't follow a moral compass. Pass. It follows, and also not logic, it follows the path of least resistance. Which means it will take the action, it will motivate us to take the action that is the fastest, easiest, and most effective in quotation forms, because when you think about this stage, okay, once again, when you think about this place, does lust really solve the issue here? Is watching pixels on the screen actually make you feel connected? In a way, yeah, but at the end of the day, it never does. It actually makes us feel even worse. So this is a lie. Let me mark just the arrow. In reality, it, it leads us to a worse place. Or actually, it leads us to more emotions we don't want to have. Whoop. And because we don't want to have these emotions, we again are presented with a choice whether to take a godly action that God would advise us to take, or a bad action would be lust. And if we do take that action, we are returned again to shame, condemnation, feeling bad about ourselves. And we are again presented with the option to take a good action or a bad action. So the trick is to understand and to train yourself and to make your brain be convinced that taking the good action is the real solution. And the more you take the good action, well, this is actually strong. The more you take the good action, the stronger this path becomes. So our brain gets used to the pattern, our brains learn the pattern of thinking, of solution, of problem solving we use the most. Another word, discipline. You know, someone who is disciplined, they're really strong at taking the good action at the right time. When they feel emotions or feelings they don't want to experience, they take the good action, they take a good choice over and over again. And this cycle for them is much stronger than this one. And that's the thing that you want to have when it comes to lust. You don't want to allow your brain constantly go to the bad action because it doesn't solve the real issue. It only creates a stronger, it only strengthens the problem. Oop. So now let's get back to the first, how do you call this? Drawing? No. Illustration? No. Well, this pattern. Um, when you discover in your life an action that you don't want to have, you want to ask yourself, why do I take this action in the first place? So, when it comes to lust, it's the same thing. Why? You need to ask yourself, why did I decide to do this? What was my desire, my deep desire within, by taking this action? And from this graph, there's the word. What what emotion am I running away from? Question mark. These are the questions you need to ask yourself when you make an undesired action. It's not to condemn yourself. Well, to some degree, yes, you need to understand you did wrong, but the real solution is in self reflection. When you start asking yourself the questions, why did I decide to do this? What was my deep desire by taking this action? What emotion am I running away from? And as you answer these questions, you'll find, in my case, let me move this. It was from something else. In my case, it was, so I'm going to use the example of loneliness and desire to connect. So my motivation to take the action was because I wanted to avoid loneliness and pursue connection with someone. Was lust a good action? Does it actually provide me with connection? Of course not. It creates more loneliness because that connection is not real that we find within um, pornography. So, when you find the solution, then you need to not solution, the answers to these questions, you need to then ask yourself, what would be the good action, the healthy and good action to get me the connection, to get me the desire, the need, the hurt, to solve the hurt that I have deep in my heart. And when you take that action, you start enforcing this circle. So every time you again start to feel loneliness and desire to connect, for example, you need to take the good action, not the bad action, which is lust, but the good action, which is to see a friend so that you could reach a place of connection that is healthy. That's the way God intended for you to reach it, not through internet pornography. So, coming back to the first illustration, first graph, first principle is that you sow a thought and you reap an emotion. You sow an emotion, you reap a decision, and decisions lead to actions. So now, after you go through this, this gives you information, and all of this presentation altogether gives you information what actually works, what is actually going on. Why do you take the wrong action in the first place? And once you have that information, it creates, I believe so, right now, it creates you a feeling of hope and desire to apply these things. So you start to decide to take this into action, and that's a good action. And the desire is to run away from lust, to overcome lust once and for all, so that from the place that you don't want to have, don't want to experience, don't want to be found in, which is addicted to lust, you want to find yourself in the place of freedom, satisfaction, contentment, and a place where you honor God with your heart, emotions, decisions, and actions.